All right, I know a shortcut. Puss went towards the kitchen shelf and pushed the wall, revealing a small passage. I know a few of the secret passages around the castle. This one leads to the castle gardens. He then beckoned for him to follow. Gotta say, Puss, you sure know your way around this castle here. Meow starts to follow the feline. He tried to use his agility to sneak out in the same fashion as he did while entering. Are you sure it leads there? Claro, Puss said as he started walking down the hallway. Torches were placed on the wall so he could see the path. When he finally reached the end, he opened another wall and showed him the huge garden. Here we are. Meow followed as he ran on all four legs as fast as he could. Puss was a very hard cat to keep up with. It wasn't much of a surprise, however. It especially wasn't a surprise since his abilities involved a lot of energetic movement and agility. As the alien ran alongside his new friend, he used the backlight from his phone device to give him a better view, as Puss used the torches in a way. Meow assisted Puss opening the wall to find a glorious garden. He saw the huge, wide, spanning garden unfold in front of him as the walls opened. Wow, this is so beautiful. It looks like a labyrinth, practically. I've never been a big flower or plant guy, but I'm impressed, he said as his jaw began to open. The castle gardens were huge. There was a fountain in the center, surrounded by flowers of every kind. The scent was very pleasant to him. On the other side there was a trail and stairs that led to the docks. He remembered when he found this garden while he and his friends celebrated Artie's coronation. From that day on, this became his favorite spot aside from the training room, where he could practice his sword fighting skills. He usually goes there after hours of practicing, since this is the place where he could relax. I'm glad you like it, Puss gave him a smile. Do you know the location of this ship? Meow shook his head. His mind was so focused on the immaculate beauty of the huge garden that surrounded him that he almost was lost in it and forgot about his conversation. Yeah, of course I do. Just let me be safe and sure, however, he said, getting his device again and typing stuff into an app program. This should give me directions straight to it, he said, as a map full of different paths to the ship were marked. Let's hit a shortcut through this labyrinth of a garden out of here, he said, with a hand motion to follow him. Puss took a quick look at the device and tilted his head. He'd never seen that kind of item before, wondering where that had come from and what it was made of. Puss knew that Humpty never made this kind of stuff. It looked very unusual to him. He simply stared at the device that his friend was holding and waited. He snapped back, glancing at Meow and nodding once before following him. The two felines dashed through the complex, structured maze. Meow led the way as Puss followed close behind. The alien looked at his device's GPS to determine the correct path. We're almost out of this crazy labyrinth, Puss. Just hang on tight, he yelled to the fellow feline. The two quickly left the maze through the intended castle maze exit. A few miles of running, and they'd finally arrived. The ship sparkled in the moonlight. As the night sky was filling with stars, every one of the attachments seemed to be in place. Meow was glad nothing had happened to it. Well, Puss, I present to you the Aloha-O. When he finally saw the ship, his eyes widened in surprise. Puss looked at the huge vehicle from top to bottom, then side to side. From what he'd seen so far, this one was different from the transportation that he usually used here. In here there were usually horses and carriages. People might be wondering what this ship was doing here in the first place. For Puss, this ship intrigued him. Holy frijoles, he whispered, still in awe. I have never seen this one before, amigo. How does it work? Meow smiled with pride gleaming on his face. The feline extraterrestrial watched as Puss admired and examined his little Aloha-O in silence. Meow's ears perked up again when he asked how it worked. He put a paw to his chin. Well, if you want, I can give you a bit of a tour, he said with a smirk. Puss looked back at him and smiled. Claro, I'd like to. That would be great, he replied. I must say I was amazed. Meow was genuinely surprised by his reaction a bit. The amazement and childlike wonder on his face was unlike anything Meow had seen before. Hey, Puss, I gotta ask you something. Do you even know flight of space travel was possible? Puss turned back to him to answer. Well, I didn't know that, amigo. I'd never been up there. I've only been in the sky once to the giant castle by Beanstalk to get to the Goose of Legend. Well, then, let's open the door to... What? Meow jumped in bewilderment. You did what exactly? A beanstalk? A giant? You're absolutely serious, aren't you? Meow said with pure amazement. Everything that I've said is true, Puss told him and added, I was with my friends back then. We went inside the castle and found the goose that lays the golden eggs. We took it. But later on I returned it to its mother because she was trying to destroy my hometown. You know, pal, you must have had a whole lot of stories under your belt. I mean, giant beanstalks, giants, defending towns. You've got more guts than I do, if I say so. On the other hand, I'm not one unfamiliar with exploring new territories and going on wild adventures. Let's just say, he said with a smile to Puss, they seem to be becoming fast friends. Meow felt like he was talking to a friend he'd known for practically eons. He was so comfortable. I do. I should tell you my first encounters when I arrived in Far, Far Away and the dangerous adventures that I faced with my friends. Puss smiled proudly before looking at him. If you don't mind, amigo, I can take you to the places that I've been to as well. There are lots of sights to explore around here and outside the kingdom. Really now? Meow started to ponder this new revelation and paused for a couple of minutes. I got an idea, Puss. I'll use one of our detachable flying escape pods to fly around the city. Just tell me where they all are and I'll punch in the coordinates. Just think, it'll give you a chance to fly. Flying escape pods? I've never heard of those before, Puss said, nodding reluctantly before glancing at the front gates, pointing at them. Right there. This leads to the town and the forest. He then gestured at the docks. Well, this one leads to my hometown, Spain. Where do you want to go? It's simply a pod like a ship that you head inside, you drive it, and where you want to go. So, if we head to Spain, we can get there faster than by ships on the dock. Where do you think this would be more of an interesting place to go first, pal? Meow said with a smile as he led him inside the flying space pod. I'll handle the navigation here. You just worry about getting comfortable. We have a sofa built in just for guests, Puss. Let's go to Spain first. We have more time to wander around the kingdom after all, Puss replied, walking inside the space pod before looking around with awe. He then turned to Meow before taking a seat. This looks great. I've never ridden in this before, Meow. Meow smiled as Puss surveyed the inside of the pod. Thanks. My boss, Dandy, decorated it. He's always been the guy into surfer dude stuff, and our pal QT keeps it pretty clean as well, he said, punching in the coordinates to Puss's hometown. Puss's home. Here we go. Nodding slightly, Puss watched when Meow pushed the buttons. The feline leaned back into a seat and waited patiently for the vehicle to move. He felt uneasy since he'd never been in here, not used to riding this pod. Moments later, Puss relaxed a little before smiling slightly. The pod started to begin aviation when he put in the coordinates for Spain. Hold on tight, it could be a bit bumpy at times. It can especially be rough in emergency warp drive, Meow stated as he started to drive it carefully to the target. I can tell you're enjoying the decorations and the comfortable little couch my crew installed in here. All right. Puss held tightly in his seat, feeling the pod moving slightly when his friend started driving. He was hoping he wouldn't end up feeling sick while heading to Spain. Indeed I am. I do like it here. You know, Dandy might be a bad aim in combat, however he's a pretty good interior decorator, Meow commented while steering the unidentified flying object. I know you might be a bit nervous since this is your first time flying and all, but don't worry, I'm an expert navigator. Puss chuckled. Well, I have experienced riding a flying object a few times. I rode a dragon and a plane made by my best friend. He's an inventor. But I never rode these ones. I've never seen them before.